Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book, How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to a new episode of I've Been Thinking. It's me, your probably third favorite podcast host. I'm Elena Grace, and I appreciate you so much for being here. If you're, a regular listener, welcome back. And if this is your first episode, this is a great one to start with. So I got a hold of my old pal from college, Ellie, and we talk about, so many things. But it is a really awesome conversation. We talk a lot about where we came from, family, and our hometown, that kind of thing. And how we both felt very much like we were being placed into boxes, or we were placing ourselves into boxes. We were expected to fit these molds that were not for us. And, we talk a lot about being kind of black sheep in our family, being rule breakers, all of that kind of stuff. And it's funny because when I was younger, I really was not a rule breaker. I was like a good kid. I did what I was expected to do, all of the above, like when I was a little kid and even into my teenage years. And then I grew up and I went to college, and it kind of happened for both of us at this point. We had always known there was something that we were missing, and then around college we realized that, and this is true for both Ellie and myself, and we talk about it more, we realized that the molds that we had been trying to fill were not our molds to fill. They weren't for us. And anyway, I'm not going to go too much into it because we really do a great job. So this episode, I want to dedicate this. This episode is for anybody, but especially young women who come from homes or small towns where they feel like they need to be a certain thing or a certain way or a certain person or a certain job, whatever it is, to be accepted and to be right, where you need to feel like you have to do XYZ, and that is when you're good enough, or that is when you're doing the right thing. That's when you're doing the real thing. You've grown up now. All of that. It's just not true. So I hope that for anybody in that kind of space in their life, that this episode helps you, and that it gives you permission to not have everything figured out, to be yourself, and to love being in the space of becoming. So, with that said, here's Ellie Simms. Yeah, so catch me up. Where have you been? What have you been doing? You've been all over the world.
So since last time we chatted 2017, so I graduated in 2018, the year after you, and I then left. Well, my plans initially at Transy were to pursue a path in medicine, but I was always more interested in more of the holistic health side of that,
Mm-hmm.
and was really fascinated with using nutrition as the primary tool in the toolbox. And so I had plans to apply for medical school, but it just did not feel like the right time. And that was something that I just felt like my intuition I could not budge on. So I was really attached to this idea of taking off and traveling for, at the time, I had no idea how long that would be, but I literally wanted to circumnavigate the world at that
I
time. And
love
I
that
was just
about you.
interested in learning more about healing systems in different cultures. So my first stop was Peru. I did my yoga teacher training there, which was something I had wanted to do for a few years, and I didn't want to teach at that time. I just wanted to deepen my practice and thought that it was knowledge that could carry over into whatever my further career path intended on being. And I ended up going to Peru, and within that year was traveling around Latin America a little bit, more of the western side of the U.S. Ended up moving to Portland September of 2019 to start a master's program, and my heart was never fully in that either. COVID happened. It was basically the perfect storm to, since I already had these uncertainties with what I was doing. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to take a leave of absence, and ended up getting a teaching job teaching yoga in Portland. And at the time, the way that the cards fell, and also with my mental health at the time, it was like the one thing I was like, you know what, I feel like I have to do this for some weird reason and stay in Portland. And just ended up taking the train and going full time with that. And here we are teaching yoga and fitness.
I love it. I remember, so I mean, obviously we were friends like in college, and we went to London together, and that was
Oh
amazing
my
when we were
God.
in England together. That was the most
I
fun.
completely forgot about that.
And I literally thought about it last night, and I was like, TBT. Were we roommates?
No, we weren't.
Who
We were
were.
not.
Oh my gosh, I remember who my roommates were now. Um, no, but that was so much fun. That was so much fun. And then I remember you obviously at that point in time being like a little, I'm going to med school, Ellie. And then next thing I knew, you were in Peru, and I was obviously like, good for her. I don't know what I'm doing either. I'm working fucking retail. Like, I don't know
But
what
does
I'm
anyone
doing.
know? Like,
No,
I think that
no one knows.
period between after college, it is such a tough transition, and it's almost like this unspoken situation. Like it's we're living in the gray area. It's that space in between, and it's like you're expected to have your life figured out and be like on this super linear, no ups
Yes,
and downs at all path to like higher education, and then getting out and getting the job that you'll be in the rest of your life. And
that
it
ain't
did
it.
not go as planned for me
No, I
at
mean, me
all.
either. And that
That's
is
okay.
like, yeah, it's totally fine. I'm like glad for that for us. Because it led us, I think, to where, at least in the moment, where we're meant to be and like who we're meant to be with. Um, I mean, I'm speaking for you, but like, I feel like that this is kind of where we're both meant to be right now. But I we are very similar people in a lot of ways, right? Because we both, and we talked about this earlier or a few weeks ago, we both grew up really conservatively in really small towns, and we have like all these similar experiences where like we still even today have to kind of portray ourselves a certain way to our like hometown and to our family and stuff, because we don't want to like reflect badly on our parents, you know, based on their perceptions of the world and all of that. But we have we went to college with an idea of who we were going to be and who we wanted to be. And then you realized you didn't want to go into medicine. And I realized that I didn't want to go to law school. And that's not where I was meant to be. And just all of these things fell into place. And now we're at these spaces where it's not where either of us probably ever thought we would be, ever.
Totally. But yeah, a lot of it is making space for that. And
Yes.
it's so messy. Like, I'm still, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Even you asking me to be on this podcast, I'm like, who am I, Elena? Like, I'm not, where I want to see myself. I'm not there yet. Again, it's like in that gray area we're still in that becoming stage. And man, it's so messy, but it's also, I feel like, just from talking about our parents, and I just feel like the generation that they grew up in and the world now, it is two totally different places, mindsets, like life events that are happening right now. It's like you almost can't even compare them, and there's been such a shift. But it's at times I feel like it can be so difficult for other people to comprehend, well, why did you choose not to go to law school? Like, on paper, I'm sure that made the most sense for you and was the most logical next step. Like, why would you not at all?
Yeah.
But man, it is a different time. And it's like, even though we have those people in our lives that they love us, but they disagree. And sometimes for me, it was because they didn't understand. It was almost, I felt emotionally neglected at times and cut off, and definitely like the black sheep. But you have to also remember that they're doing the best they can with, they have a totally different worldview and perception than they do. And from their standpoint, what they think is the best decision for you, literally like out of love to them, they're doing the most they can with what they have. And sometimes it doesn't lie eye to eye or align, and it's being able to accept that and move forward. But it's much easier said than done. It's been like years and years of me trying to be at peace with that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like, a few months ago, actually it was back like late summer, early fall, I went home. I think it was my grandmother's birthday, actually, so like September. And I have not seen my family, like my mom's brothers and sisters or my dad's side of the family, really very much in the past few years because of COVID and everything. And we're trying to be really careful, especially around my eldest grandmother, because she's 87, 88. And we're like, we don't want to bring anything around her, right? So we had a little outside like picnic at her house for her birthday because she really wanted all her kids together. And I'm there, and my uncle is like being a little shit because that's just who he is. And he was picking on me and one of his daughters. And he said, "So did you ever find a real job yet?" And I was like, "Listen, you want to throw me under that bus again?" And my mom and my aunt were like, "Do not start that today. Do not do it." And he's just picking on me. But I was like, that is not where we want to go today. I can't get a job. But it cuts
deep.
Yeah, it cuts deep. I'm like, I can't get a quote unquote real job. Like, it cuts deep.
It cuts deep. And I've been, asked the same question.
Yeah.
And I think it's such an internal battle, because there have been times, Lena, where I've wished that I had a real job and that was enough for me, and I could have just went about this linear path and, been an hour from home and been working a 9 to 5. And I wish it was that simple. And I mean, Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
one time my brother told me, he was like, maybe if you followed the rules in our family, like everybody would like you. And I was like, man, I wish, like I really do wish, but at the same time, it's like since I've been little, I've felt really deeply connected to my intuition in a way that it's like I just cannot, like medical school, it was like so many people, my professors, my family, they were like, why aren't you applying for this? Like, this is logically, I mean, duh, why,
Yeah.
you're coming off of all of these experiences and these fresh relationships with professors, and you're here, and like, why would you wait a few years? Like, this is just, people told me that was just going to like uh, decrease my chance of getting in, and I wouldn't get in if I waited longer, and maybe I'd just never do anything with my life once I started traveling. And I was like, oh, that
Yeah,
it's
that's a lot of
tough following and
pressure.
listening to yourself. Oh, it's so much pressure. I mean, and we, like I said, we still don't have everything figured out, but especially at that age, like, and during that transition as well, you're going through such a big transition
Mm-hmm.
from college into life after. And then also it's this huge decision on deciding what feels like the rest of your life. And like I said, times are changing, and it's just how do you decide what to do for the rest of your life? Like, we're constantly changing and evolving now. I feel like more than ever the world is more unpredictable than ever. Careers, the value of degrees are not what they were
No.
years ago. It's a different world. Technology has totally came in and just shaken up the game. Yeah, it is so much pressure, and it's also, I felt like I was being put almost in this box that for years I believed had my name on it, when the box never had my name on it. And it was almost, to me, I don't know if you went through this too when you decided not to go to law school, but for me, especially when I decided to leave my master's program that was in nutrition. And the reason that I was in that program for years and years and years, I struggled with an eating disorder amongst other mental health issues. And so stepping away from that, and then the medical field, or interest around the medical field in particular, it felt like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And I was like, who am I without nutrition, without thinking about this all hours of the day, or this obsession with it? And there's just, it's like unpeeling an onion, all the layers to it.
Yeah. There's so much to it. And I remember, and honestly, you remember Don Doogie, like Dr. Doogie from Transy?
Okay, so I never had him, but
He was one of the poli-sci professors. Well, he was like in charge of
That's
the
why I never
poli-sci
had him.
program. Yeah. I was thinking
one political science class.
I was thinking you took a class, so that's why I was like, do you remember him? Anyway. So he was like the hard ass of the poli-sci program, right? And I like felt, and I know that this is completely insane because he never put this on me, but I and so many other people felt like we had to impress him all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, we felt so much pressure from him, I guess because he was a hard ass, and that's just his personality though. And he also, at the same time, outside of the classroom, is like the biggest teddy bear. He is so kind. But in the classroom one day, he was talking to somebody about writing their law school reference letters or recommendation letters. And I was like, oh shit, Dukes, can you write mine? And he was like, you literally should have had me write those like 2 months ago, but yes, I'll write them for you. He was like,
yeah,
are you sure you want to go? Like, I feel like if you're not on top of it, you probably just aren't that serious about going. Like, why are you making this decision? And I was like, no, I want to go. I'm just procrastinating. He's like, okay. And then I make the decision not to go a few months later, and I never really talked to him about it. And a year later, I was at your graduation, and I saw him, and he was like talking to somebody, and he's like, Campbell, stay where you are. I want to come talk to you. And then he comes over after his conversation, and he gives me this big fat hug, and I'm like, what? And he was like, what's going on? I said, really, I don't know what's going on. And like, honestly, I've been scared of running into you because I didn't want to admit that to you. And he was like, you don't have to know what's going on. He was like, I knew that this would happen with you. Like, I had this feeling. And I like, just know that you don't have to know what you're doing yet. It's totally okay. Do you know the weight that lifted off of me?
That hearing that secondhand lifted a weight off of me, because I haven't spoken to some of my professors from Transy that I'm connected with on Facebook, because I have shame around, oh my God, I didn't go into that field and I'm teaching yoga, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
It's permission, really. It comes down to it, like permission to, and also this concept of like, well, if you didn't do it, you failed. It's
right.
not black or white. Like, it's, if you didn't go, then you didn't go. And that's okay. Like you said, like that literally, yeah, hearing that was like a sigh of relief internally for me.
Yeah, because it's from that establishment that we came from, where we felt this like expectation to do XYZ, like all the other people who graduated and went on and they're super successful now and they're doing this and they're like saving the world and doing all these things. And I think we both had that idea going in that we wanted to save the world in our way, but we had to do it this way. And now we're kind of realizing that the world is different than the way we perceived it, at least for me. Like, totally. I wanted to go to law school because I wanted to help people, and I wanted to also help Appalachia and, like, change people's perspectives on it, right? And I am realizing now that, I mean, in doing this podcast and in being a creative and doing things like that, I'm able to help people in very meaningful ways, but it's just not changing legislation. It's like helping them on a very personal level. At least I hope. Like, that's my goal with it.
Completely. Well, and there's not three ways to help people, you know, because I think when I was in college, I thought that was law school, medical school, or dental school. And there is a lot of ways that you can be resourceful and of aid to other people. And I heard a quote the other day, and it was something along the lines of, if you think that you have your entire life figured out, like step by step right now, then you're just completely operating and basically chained to your ego, because life is full of ups and downs. And it's also being open to, you know, I don't know if you believe in a higher power or God, or I personally do, though, and that's where a lot of my, especially along this road, it's been definitely building faith and having trust in the unseen, and being like an open channel for yourself to be used in whatever way is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do. And that was one of the things that definitely contributed to my idea, that because I felt one day like, I am called, I need to help people. That's what I want to do. And so I was like, well, this is the way to do it. You go to law school, you change legislation, you get into politics, you do these things. Like, this is the perfect way for me to do it. And so I spent 4 years of my life dedicated to that idea. And then suddenly, February of 2017, I realized I was chasing something that, because that's when it was, I literally, like, it was February 2017, about to freaking graduate, and I realized that I was chasing an ideal of something that I liked this version of it. If it was any other version, if it was any other law school than the one I specifically wanted to go to, I didn't want it. And when I didn't get that law school, I was like, well, I don't want this then. And that was like a huge reality check, and I'm so grateful for it, because it kept me from doing something that I wouldn't have loved the way that, I mean, like, I definitely still have hard times. Like, I cried for like 30 minutes last night because I was just frustrated. just frustrated. And I'm like, why did I work so hard? I spent 6 years of my life in higher education and I worked hard. And here I am doing these jobs right now that I enjoy, but at the same time, they're running me ragged and I am tired. And I don't have enough me time.
Yeah. But that's also, it's a part of the process, and like knowing deep down this is going somewhere, but it's not always on our own timing. And even things that you think that you're doing right now that aren't even related to the big picture, they do contribute. And
They do.
it's like, yeah, and it's one of those things too. It's like from different jobs that have been like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like, it feels like such a waste of my time. I'm not being paid enough. Like, this is just trying to kind of get through. It's like different random connections I made through that job, or, I mean, the tiniest things, they've manifested into bigger picture. It's just, I feel like there is this underlying, very intricately designed plan for all of us, that in ways that you have no idea, and you can't predict it and you can't control it. And that's what feels so terrifying and frustrating and has you crying, like you said, right before bed, because it's like, what is happening here? But it's having trust and just continuing to show up, and it's taking that next step every time, whatever the next best step is. But it's so much more difficult sometimes or easier said than done.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, I think you're exactly right. I'm so glad that we had this scheduled for today, because I think I needed to talk to you. I think I needed to hear these things.
You can call me anytime.
I so appreciate that. I so appreciate that, because it is so hard, and I hope that somebody listening to this like needs to hear this too, because it's so important for us to remember that, I don't know, that it doesn't always seem like in the moment we're doing anything productive even, but it still is helpful, I guess, in the bigger picture. Like you said, it gets us where we're meant to be eventually.
And no one's path is meant to be linear, no matter how much it seems on the outside or from social media.
Right.
I mean, and I feel personally in my life, it's like each time there's a really low, there is a peak or a, mountain, a high that is equally matched. And a part of that, I don't know, for me, I feel like all of those darkest, deepest points, they do prepare you and set you up to and almost create such a depth to be able to give that much more. And also other people going from it, like they hear your story and they're gonna be like, well, if Elena can do this, I can do it. But it's not supposed to look perfect. Like,
yeah.
It would also be very boring if everything was so easy and perfect. But on the other hand, it is just incredibly frustrating. Like, when is this gonna happen for me? And I totally get it. I mean, I feel like I flux between both states every other day.
Yeah,
if not
sure.
like midday and then afternoon, evening.
That was literally me yesterday. I was like, I am so happy with my life. Happy Wednesday.
You're totally.
And then
like, everything's happening for me. This is amazing. And then yeah.
and then I get home and it's a meltdown.
Yeah.
What do you like? Was there a point in your travels or in your life that really like opened you up to realizing that, or has it been a long journey of changing your perspective of the world?
Are you talking specifically to what?
Yeah, that was an awful way to ask that question. Like, at what point did you or was there a specific point where you kind of realized that, I'll ask you this. Was there a point where you realized that you were never meant to be the family rule follower, and or was that just always who you were? Like, did you realize one day, like, I am the black sheep and that's okay? Because I have definitely, like, I am a black sheep in my family. Honestly, all of us grandchildren, like all the grandchildren of my one grandmother, we're all a hot mess, frankly. Some of us less than others. but some of us more than others. And I feel like I am one of the ones that, even though I'm not a hot mess like some of my cousins, they're like, well, look at Elena. Like, look at what she's doing. She's all the way in Florida. Like, can you believe that?
I think it was a slow unlearning process.
Yeah.
Because I look back at college, and honestly, college was really tough for me. I felt the entire time like I was also trying to put myself in, when you get in there, you're still young. It's like you want to fit in. Especially at our college, it seemed like everybody around us was going into law school or med school or looking to go in some type of prestigious graduate program after school. And it felt like I needed to be going somewhere with a clear destination in sight, and something that also held more of a prestigious title and some esteem. And so the entire time, and of course you're young, like I know that I had friends that it seemed like from when they popped out of the womb, they knew that they wanted to go to medical or law school, and some of them did, and that's great. I was never someone that knew that though, or had an idea. And so I always felt during college, I was just like, okay, where do I put myself, or what am I going to do? And, I had a really difficult time relating with people as well. It's funny because when I look back, I always wanted to teach fitness, but it was something that I shrugged under the table for a while because it was not an actual profession per se, or at least my family would have said that.
Right.
And why would you do that when you could be doing other things? I was never very comfortable with my body either for a while. And so I was like, oh, who am I to do? Like a ton of imposter syndrome around it. But that was something that it's so funny as actually thinking about my freshman year of college. I majored in exercise science because it just seemed like it made sense because I had this interest in health and wellness. But we had a project and it was like, find someone to interview that you look up to regarding their job, and it may be a job that you wanted to do, and then write a paper on the interview that you had with them. And I actually did it with one of my favorite fitness instructors from back home, and it's so funny how things line up. But anyway, I just always felt like I wasn't quite in the place that I was meant to be. And that's also why I feel like I had this such strong urge to leave and travel and just go after college, because I had such a difficult time finding my people, finding my place. And once I ended up traveling and experiencing different cultures and talking to people from all different walks of life and learning that wow, there was really so much more out there. And once you learn that, it's like you're able to gain a bit more perception and almost like a third person opinion on, and create a little bit of space from what you've been so attached to, that I have to do this and I have to have this linear life. And it was like, whoa, why do I think this way? What am I doing? Where did I get that idea from? Who gave me that? Where did I take that on from? Is it mine? Like, does this actually resonate with me? And at the end of the day, it was a no. But just because I'm sure you're familiar with this. It's once you find out that for you, like with law school, ending up that you found that no, it's like, that doesn't mean you know what to do from there, right? You got to kind of sit in it and be like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not for me, but I have no idea what the next step is. And so that, again, it was like unpeeling the onion. I feel like it's just been a slow, and it's been almost identity crisis after identity crisis for a little bit for me with that. And until I went full time with yoga and fitness, which at the time, that decision for me, it felt like the most right thing in so long and what I'd been looking for. And but it was nothing that I planned to do or predicted. It almost found me, I feel like. So yeah, long way around answering your question. Slow unpeeling. It wasn't an aha moment by any means.
I mean, I love that though, that that it was that slow unpeeling of you, like, realizing yourself, I feel, because I mean, I definitely am still experiencing that and still unpeeling those ideas of who people think I should be, and like shedding those layers of caring what they think too.
And I think that's something that we have to check in with ourselves over the course of life, because we're always going, I think the world will continue to try and put you in boxes, and depending on what you venture into, there's always going to be things that you feel like, especially from an ego sense, like, oh, I would be great if I did this, or if I did this, that means that I really succeeded here. And it's like redefining what success means every day, and checking in with yourself, because it's so easy to get caught up in the swing of things, and subconsciously and unconsciously, it's like you just take on almost these projections of where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people, I mean, I feel like that was part of my meltdown last night, where it was like the people that I surround myself with, I have some like incredible influences on my life right now, that they are people I can learn from and that I can look up to in a lot of ways. But then at the same time, I'm like, why can't I be them right now? Like, why can't I be in some of the same places that they're in right now? And I'm like, realistically, and this is what Adam told me, he's like, Elena, they are in that place and they're like in their 60s or 70s. Like, you can't expect to be in that place right now, just a hop, skip, and a jump. They have like worked for that. You have to wait, and you have to figure things out. And not that you have to wait, but you have to wait for it to be your time, you know? So it's just also, so hard. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's just so hard to peel that off of you and like get to who you are, and not where you want to be because of where other people are. Does that
completely
make sense?
And I think there's two things with that. Like, it's so easy to compare yourself to where other people are. I do it still all the time with other yoga teachers and people in the community that I admire, and also even on the internet, just people you see like, oh my God, look, they're at point X and I'm at point B. But it's also, you got to be careful with it, because the world doesn't need more of them. It needs an Elena, and it needs an Ellie, but it is being patient with what that path looks like for you. And it does take time for these, like you said, like people that you look up to are in their 60s, and obviously we're still in our 20s. Yeah. Like, we have so much life ahead of us, and it's so easy to look at somebody who's way up where we want to be, but we're also not going back and looking at all those steps that got them there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And pushing that to the side.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, I think. We just really want to be somewhere, and where we think we should be, but we're not looking at the big picture. I guess we're looking at the point we want to be at, and not at how we have to get there and how hard it's been for other people to get there too.
Completely. And it's also one of those things that it's like, well, check yourself a little bit. Like, if you were at that point, like, would you be that much happier?
Yeah.
Because we never truly get somewhere, and then it's like fireworks and you made it, you did this. Like, it is a continuous journey, and it's like being okay with letting yourself be happy almost during it.
Yeah,
because at times I think we're almost like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be, so I can't let myself be happy until I'm there. But in reality, like, you got to check in.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like, for example, the past year that we were living in Cincinnati, year and a half. We were living in Cincinnati, and I was pretty much jobless the entire time because of the pandemic. And I had my master's, but like, what's that going to do if you don't have a job or a market to get a job in? Like, because the market just completely yeeted itself out the window thanks to COVID. And just all of these things. And I was just like laying on the couch depressed, basically. And now I wish that I had, and when I realized what I was doing, I was like, I need to take more advantage of where I am in this freedom that I have that I might not ever have again. Mm-hmm. And I wish that I had done that more in that time, and like, you know, taken the time to just like walk around downtown Cincinnati, but like by myself, and like adventure and do weird shit. But at the same time, I learned from that no matter where you're at, you need to take advantage of what little, or, you know, what little you have. Even if you're at a space that you have very little, like, you need to take advantage of that. Totally. And love where you're at as best as you can.
As best as you can. And also, though, it's like, especially during the pandemic in the past 2 years, giving yourself grace. Like, I mean, we have never lived through something like this before. And it's also okay to let yourself sit in the muck and the shit of things. But it's trying to find that fine line of like, okay, what is what is helpful and when does this start to get harmful? And sometimes you have to sit in maybe that borderline of when it's harmful to get yourself out of it and learn how to not get there again and build upon
exactly.
it. But it's not always rainbows and butterflies. This is great.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Means.
And yeah, and that is thankfully, I guess, what I learned from that. Like, it's not always great, but even when it's not great, like, you can at least go outside and sit in the sunshine or something, or like go find 100%. A free parking spot somewhere and go walk around. Like, I don't know.
100%.
You just gotta do what you can.
Do what you can with what you have, one step at a time.
One step at a time. Exactly. Ellie, thank you so much for coming on today. You've made my day.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for asking me to come on. It was such an honor.
Absolutely. It was so much fun. I'm so glad we got to catch up and hopefully share some good insights with the listeners. Like, I wanted you to come on because, like we said when we were talking, we have some similar background. We have some similar things that we've gone through. And I want perceptions and perspectives to be expanded. And I think you're a great example of that.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You are too. It was lovely.
It was so lovely. Do you have anything you want to plug for the listeners before we go? Like your social, your classes that you teach, anything?
Oh my God. Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Ellie Simms, SIMMS. I teach in the Portland area. I'm at a few studios. Those are all listed on my Instagram.
Perfect. And I'll link those too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for the listener, just make sure that you're following I've Been Thinking, the podcast, on Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod. Follow or subscribe wherever you listen. And check out the Patreon for extra content, patreon.com/I've Been Thinking. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk at y'all next time. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.